And good evening and welcome to another episode of Campus Debates by the Debate Association of Kenya. My name is Masi Vugutsa and I will be your host for tonight. I know some of you are wondering, what exactly is Campus Debates? Campus Debates is a show where young people come to have intellectual conversations about issues that exist within society. These issues could be social, political, or economic. And at the same time, they could be local, regional, or international. So I think that's really beautiful that they get to engage in issues that affect me, affect you, and anyone else that you might know, right? And what else is beautiful about this show is that it comes from a perspective of young people. We get to give them a platform and a voice to share their opinions, ideas, and any other thing they may have to actually offer to the issues that exist within society. If you're a loyal viewer, thank you so much for choosing to tune in with us on Monday at 8 p.m., our very loyal viewer. But if this is your first time, welcome to Campus Debates, and I promise you we will give you a treat in this show and in other episodes to come. Now, without further ado, I would love to explain to you how Season 2 really looks like and what entails it, right? I know you guys are used to Premier League and football, to all the football fans. If you're not, we promise to cater for you in this show, right? We have a point system where if you win a debate, you get 3 points. If you don't win, you get 1 point. But the good thing about it is you also get good speaker scores. So if your speaker scores are good, yet you did not pass your 2 rounds, you still have an ability to not face each other in the knockout rounds. But if your speaker scores were bad and you didn't also win your rounds, you get to fight for your lives and try to retain some level of continuation in the debates that get to follow through the knockout rounds. Interesting, right? I know it is. Now, let's get on to the debate so that we can understand which speakers we have for us today. From side proposition represented by Kenya School of Law, and from side opposition represented by the University of Nairobi. I will allow the speakers a second to introduce themselves and tell us something about them.
Good evening. My name is Michael Mulongo. I'm a student at Kenya School of Law on campus. Yes, and I like Man United so much.
He had me mention Premier League and football, and he said he had to mention Man United, but it's fine. Yes, side opposition.
My name is Michael Awimbo, student at the University of Nairobi, Economics and Statistics, and yeah, I love playing and acting.
Nice. We have a football fan and an actor. I think this is going to be interesting already. Now, I can't wait for the debate. I would love to introduce our judges. We are joined by 3 amazing people on the panel tonight, and I'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves and tell us something interesting about them.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wycliffe Otieno. I'm hearing people talking about Premier League and football. I mean, who is this guy? The league is coming to an end soon, so I'll be here a lot of times. Looking forward to a very lovely debate from KSL and UON. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Perez Ngono. I'm a student at Kenyatta University, and I just hope that we're going to have a lovely debate.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Nekoye. I'm a student at the University of Nairobi, and I'm going to be a panelist for this round, and I wish you guys all the best.
The lovely panel is expectant of the debate that we are about to have from KSL and University of Nairobi. I hope you are too. At the same time, while we are listening to the debate, feel free to let us know who you think will end up with the trophy or the crown from Campus Debates Season 2. Without further ado, I would love to welcome side proposition to debate the motion that reads, this House believes that the FKF should not penalize football teams whose supporters commit immoral or violent acts during a football match. I'll repeat it. This House believes that the FKF should not penalize football teams whose supporters commit immoral or violent acts during a football match. We welcome the first speaker side proposition to begin their case. Here.
I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. First of all, FKF is a body that is in charge of football in Kenya. In full, it is Football Kenya Federation. First, how does Penalise look like in our world, or in how we think? Is this way. Penalise looks like fining a team, not just simply fining, but fining it in terms of money and this money which you're fining, you're getting from them, will be a whole lot of it, and it's going to affect the team, as we're going to show you. 2, it appears like you banning a team from playing in football leagues, and this is a team that has given its sweat and blood to get into a league that they have to compete in and win a trophy or get some award of sort. Then, how does it look like when there are violent acts? Violent acts look like this. There are fights between fans, or like them disrupting matches in terms of making noise, throwing bottles or any other objects at officials, things like that. Now, panel, you have to understand this way. How do they think penalizing is, and how does it work for them? And what do they do to ensure that, in that context, how do they tell us about what is important to penalize? And we see that these teams have had a lot to do, and they have a lot of liabilities to take care of. Number one, we have to look at the nature of fans is this way. They are diehard people. They are enthusiastic. They are people who do not wish the team to lose. They do not like the body which leads now the Football Federation to fail them. And it has failed them. It's just because we tell you, Kenyan football is one of the worst. We barely watch Kenyan football because Kenyan football nowadays is like high school football, because the football that they are showcasing is a football that's not even seen in DSTV. DSTV projects you to the world. This is what South Africa did. They did this, and South Africa has a football league that has a global view, in the sense that when I mention Mamelodi Sundown, you know it. When I mention to you what is Gor Mahia, you don't know what is Gor Mahia, because Gor Mahia has not been seen anywhere. So number one, we look at the frustration that comes when this happens, in the sense that when, first of all, you do this, the team is going to lose fans. The fan base is going to go down. And how do fans impact a team? They buy shirts. That is money going to the team. 2, they ensure that the team also gets funds when they buy tickets to watch the game. Gor Mahia alone contributed over 1 million shillings when they played at the Mashemeji Derby just here in Nyayo Stadium. Now, let's look at this as we move on. That there also will be financial constraints in the team side, where they will have no money to pay the players who have obligations, and these obligations have to be taken care of. Now, then we shall tell you why the Football Federation has failed, because if it has a body, it has failed to take care of issues where fans have quarrels or fans misbehave. So, if the system has failed, what system do they have? And the system that we give you is this. They have to have a body that investigates the issues concerning fans. And the team itself has to have mechanism, in the sense that fans who misbehave are punished, in the sense that they also maybe banned from the team or something like that. Now, we also look at it this way, that the credibility in terms of the Kenyan football and standards has failed totally, and in the sense that we have to be a league that, Kenya is a big country, but its football looks like, as I told you, its football looks like high school football. The football that needs to be embraced, football that needs to be showcased to the world by Kenya has not been that has not been the case, because we have had a leadership that has failed us, and the fans have acted in this way to come and try to do away with this. Now, this shows that fans have been having a sense of like patriotism, and it means that FKF itself has failed. And how is it that FKF again, if it has failed to give Kenya the standard that it needs, it again has the power and reason to do what? To penalize these people, to penalize a team which you do not just, it has actors who we have told you they are the fans, they are the players, and there is now the management. The management, we have told you what's going to go through. Now, the burden on their side, they have to tell us, why is it that they think we should penalize? And is penalize the only way? Penalize is not the only way. If you have a problem with a team because of its actions, you cannot only penalize. There are other ways you can do this. How can you do this? you can give a warning first because there's second chance. You can give a warning to a team that you know what, you as Gor Mahia, if you fail to manage your funds, you have been given a warning as a notice or whatever way you do it. Rather than just saying, I'm going to penalize you and there's no action you've taken so far. Then you also have to look at you as a football federation team, you have other means like legal means. And it says that you can open a case against a team rather than only having the only option as penalize. Penalize cannot be the only option to do away with issues concerning funds misbehavior. Thank you so much.
We have heard from side proposition telling us that we do not want the FKF to penalize any football team. In case of any question, FKF ideally means the Football Kenya Federation, the team that wholly manages a lot of football teams that exist within the state and actually the leagues that the football teams participate in. With that, we welcome side opposition to offer the argument. Hear, hear.
Okay, so I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. So panel, there are a lot of inconsistencies from government side. First problem here, they tell us that fans who exist within this football space are die-hard fans. This is to say these are people who are highly committed to these teams. These are people who highly value these teams, and then tell us at the point in time we take action against the teams, these fans will suddenly buy out. The reason that is not true is on two levels. First of all, these are not the people who are incurring this cost at the end of the day. It's the teams that they support who are incurring that cost. But secondly, by them analyzing the mere fact that these people are die-hard fans, it then means they're unlikely to leave these teams anyways. Secondly, the kinds of alternatives you get from proposition sides are far much more expensive than what you propose on our side of the world. They tell you FKF is essentially failing, but they don't tell you why. The reason why the quality FKF is able to accrue to its people is bad is because of the lack of funds or the limited funds. At the point in time we go with the lines of actions they tell us, the things like taking legal courses and things like that, those things become far much more expensive in comparison to just giving these people penalties and asking them to pay fines. We think that is an easier alternative, and that is something we are willing to stand for. So the other reason why we think their side is essentially bad is because of the precedents it sets within society. We think at the point in time they fail to take action against these teams, it gives these particular fans legitimacy to continue committing these acts. These acts looks like two things. One, vandalism of the things that exist within those places, and two, looting. This is throwing stones at people, at the other fans of the other teams and players who play these particular things. We think this is very problematic on two levels. One, economically, it means the FKF will be mandated by the governments of this place to take action to pay for those things that have been destroyed. But then secondly, it puts these particular players at harm's way, and that is something we think that is essentially bad on their side of the world. So then why does our side of the world become better? We think at the point in time we put these funds to, we put these particular sanctions or punishments towards these teams, it becomes very easy to control these funds. The reason why this is true is because these funds are greatly connected to these particular teams. They value these teams, they value whatever these teams will tell them. And at the point in time we make these teams incur that particular cost, it gives these teams an incentive to talk to these people and tell them to stop taking that particular action. The reason why this does not happen in the present status quo is because these particular teams have no incentive to do this, because at the point in time their fans are out there looting and harming their opponents. They're only getting more leverage over their opponents and chances to win, and they get bragging rights. They cannot do that on their side of the world. But then secondly, why we think this is important, we are able to maintain sponsors and donors of these particular things and even get more donors at that point in time. Notice, panel, that sports is based on fair play and things like that, and sportsmanship within that particular space. And those are the things that incentivize other actors from the external space to come and sponsor these particular games, to come and sponsor these particular teams. So at the point in time you don't take these actions and this heinous acts continues being propagated in society, what this means is they are likely losing out on those sponsors anyways, because most of these sponsors don't want to be attached to to such acts that are essentially bad, that harm their own image as the companies sponsoring them. So that shows you, if the argument from government is that the quality of the sport is essentially bad, it only gets worse on their side of the world, because they likely lose out on that capacity. That then means they lose out on the capacity to employ good coaches, to employ goods like methods to use in their teams, and that is something particularly bad. But this uniquely changes in our side of the world, because at this point in time, our football FKF in our side of the world is portrayed as an actor that values sportsmanship, that values the inherent value of sports in and of itself, and that makes it accrue more sponsors on our side of the world. So on a comparative level, that then means in our side, we are better able to improve the quality of sports in the short term and even in the long run, because it means at the point in time we're able to get more sponsors, more donors within this space. It means we're able to improve the quality of the sport in and of itself, because we're able to employ better coaches who will have better strategies at that point in time, which we think is something necessarily important in our side of the world. But then secondly, we think we are able to pull in more funds and maintain the fan base. We think the comparative here is simple. The fan base that exists within this particular sport is highly stratified. There are the physical fans and fans who are largely virtual, who watch from TV. Most of these fans who watch on TV, who are not necessarily diehard fans, who buy the merchandise, will likely be incentivized to leave these teams at the point in time they do this particular heinous act. But the point in time we foster this particular ideology in society, we think we are better able to maintain these guys and have them continue buying merchandise. This is jerseys for these particular teams, hats that are branded with these particular team names and things like that. We think things like that increase the revenue of these teams themselves. That means something important for these particular players. It means in our side of the world, we are able to ensure that these kinds of people are able to get a stable revenue and increase their revenue even in the long run, because we're able to increase these kinds of money. So the reason why we beat out government teams at the right off the bat is because we prove to you why utility exists on 3 levels in our side of the world. 1, for FKF insofar as they get better sponsors. 2, for these particular players because they get more money within that society. And with that, I rest my case.
An interesting first half of the debate. If you're a football fan, I'm sure you've been following the speeches from both side proposition and side opposition. What proposition tells us is the FKF is already failing. We don't see if there's any need to now make them suffer more consequences of their supporters' actions. But side opposition tells you the only way to maintain the FKF's credibility, or even to maintain the idea that supporters have in those spaces, is to have them suffer the consequences of their supporters' actions. I don't know which argument you vote, whether it's side proposition or side opposition. But for you at home, do you think that football teams should actually suffer the consequences of their supporters? Feel free to comment on X at KTN Home. If you were not here for the first half of the debate, we were arguing along the lines of the motion that this House believes that the FKF should not penalize football teams whose supporters commit immoral or violent acts during a football match. So if you're a football fan and you just joined us, don't worry, we have a treat for you from the debaters that we have currently. For the second half of the debate, we'll be joined by KSL from Side Proposition, Kenya School of Law, and UON, the University of Nairobi, as side opposition. You got to hear from the first speakers of both schools. Now we get to introduce the second speakers of both schools as well. I will allow them to say their name and something interesting about them before we get into the debate.
My name is Micah Mhwana. I'm a student at KSL. I'm interested in reading books, and I'm a timely traveler. Yeah, that's it.
A reader and a traveler. Could be traveling through books and at the same time physically. I think that's interesting. Let's introduce our side opposition.
Hello, my name is Randy Mugambi, student of law, University of Nairobi. Something interesting about me, let's see. I do everything he doesn't do. I watch sports, avid sports fan.
He watches sports, so we are guaranteed of the possibility of a very fun and engaging debate from side opposition and side proposition. Without further ado, we welcome the second speaker, side proposition, to continue the case. Here, here.
I'm starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, we need to understand that this debate should not be made to look as if we are debating school is better than not going to school. This is it. What I want to bring up is, first of all, to rebut what OP has brought in this debate. OP is saying that they're having the issue of making profit out of this, but we don't see that, because what we think is that there's nothing like profit that's coming out of this debate, because in the world, if they say that they're making money out of selling merchandise and selling teams, let me say jerseys and all this, how are we guaranteed that the money that they're bringing up is helping the KPL to continue to have like more and more benefits? What we are just seeing is continuous frustration in the system. So I cannot see the urge of him saying that by selling the jerseys and selling all this merchandise and branding will give KPL more waters, like in terms of running the system. We think that is something that is not guaranteed and well explained in the world. Number two, they come and talk about the issue of like they're not that we are not incurring costs because the funds are not bringing in money. At the same time, we think that the responsibility of funds is also to question what is happening in status quo, because what we are seeing in the world is match fixing. We have seen issues such as match fixing happening in status quo, whereby people are being caught trying to fix matches. For example, if Leopard is meeting with against Goromaya, we see that there's a lot of match fixing that's happening. And we have seen some of the people being caught on TV and on news. So that's something that they need to account to us. If they talk about that, we see that funds are not benefiting. Because even if they have to benefit in terms of seeing that the teams are winning the most games, are given the necessary support in terms of jerseys and other stuff, we are seeing players not being paid. We have seen players not having even the money to travel across to go and play leagues. We have never seen Kenya going to play even in World Cup, because we see the continuous system of FKF, which is making this system not good to operate in that particular regard. They talk about mentioning sponsors. If we are having any sponsors coming from the world, they should tell us what these sponsors have brought in terms of benefits. My partner has talked about the issue of like bringing up. South Africa is having its games being hosted at and being showcased at DSTV. What are we seeing? What partners are they bringing on board? That's what we want to know. Which partners, which donors, which sponsors are bringing up to ensure that KPL gets its importance and continue to make more profit, attract more fan base. What we think is this. We think that there's something that is frustrating the system, and that is the issue of mismanagement of funds. We are seeing over and over again monies being pumped into this system. Even if the money is not enough, they even misuse this money. We have seen the issues whereby FKF has been tasked to be accountable for how the system is being run. We think that they have to prove to us why their system is not efficient in helping KPL to become better. What we think again is this. The issue of the rivalry. We are having these funds having clashes because they are not being guaranteed in terms of like having a stake as funds to benefit out of this, because they are having they're having the frustration of time and time again of losing the games, and they think that, okay, what's your PY?
Right. So what's the value of sports to fans to the extent that they have to fight to defend their team?
Okay, the fans basically have a value because they are, as my partner said, they are people who have fallen in love with the team. They are people who believe this is the team that can help us feel a sense of pride at the end of the day. This is the team that can help us to feel or to think or to have a thought of continuously winning, continuously gaining more and more. So what makes them to have that kind of value is because they have that pride in their team. So we think that that's something that we cannot get it out of this debate.
we recommend things such as disciplinary action, as my partner said. There's no need of like taking someone to a legal course. We think that a legal course is good, but at the same time, we also need to have an internal measure. That means disciplinary action. Even if a team, let me say FC Leopards, sees a fan who is having an issue of violence, what they need to do is to actually ensure that these fans do not gain entrance into stadiums and all that stuff. Instead of just punishing a team will lose more money, a team will lose more fan base, a team will lose value, will not continue to have like KPL being seen globally or even continentally. We'll see KPL continuously failing, continuously like not performing because of that issue. With that, I rest my case.
We have had the last speech from side proposition telling us that they think that you should not punish the teams for the messes that supporters make, especially during matches. With that, we welcome side opposition to complete their argument with the second speaker. Hear, hear.
As I said, I promised to make this interesting. So I'll take POIs at minute 4, maybe. Okay. Chair, I think something very important you should note to this debate is that, one, a lot of what they're debating exists on both sides of the house. Let me give you a rundown of what they say. One, they talk to you about match fixing and why essentially it's bad, and like why we have to defend a world where match fixing exists. One will really tell you that issue exists on both sides of the house. Two things. One, if match fixing exists, then the alternative they give us is, one, we need to investigate, and then two, we need to take these people to court or something like that. These two processes need money. Where does this money come from? FKF. Two, fans having no benefit to like gaining no benefit from like essentially getting to attend these events and getting to watch these sports. We think that's essentially problematic for several reasons. The value of sport within these fans. I'm going to talk to you about the principle of escapism. Why escapism is important to these people. One, these people live like very derelict lives at the most part. These people go to work on a daily basis and stuff like that. They have to come home and they live their day through these small experiences. These small experiences look like watching their team win, watching their team lose. Those are the kind of small emotional experiences that get to like that they get to like live their day with, right? And if that's the case, then we need to protect this escapism. Why then does this become very important in today's debate? At the point where we have violence like in stadiums, this becomes particularly bad for two reasons. One, the rationality of the actor on the ground affects the actor who's watching like online. We think there's a bigger contingent of fans, as my partner said, who watch these things on TV. If they see this violence being orchestrated like on the ground, then this becomes particularly bad for them. Why? You interrupt with the small emotional experiences that get to go within their day. Why then this becomes important in this debate is that a penalty to this team, because it's this team that is going to incur the cost of the violence that occurs on the stadium and the damage that occurs to the stadium, becomes particularly important simply because, one, you get to protect the larger contingent of people who watch this sport. Two, the team, like the kind of narrative that this runs to other teams and other fans who exist within that same status quo becomes particularly important. Why? One, if you do this, or rather if your fans do this, you as the team gets to incur that cost. Why then that becomes particularly important is that, one, the fans realize that I benefit from this, from the small emotional experiences, from the small emotional experience I get from seeing my team win, I get from seeing my team lose. If that is taken away from me, my day becomes particularly worse off. In fact, in any case, in this debate, the fans' days becomes particularly worse off on their end of the house. That becomes particularly bad for them. And remember, the fan is the most important actor and the most vulnerable actor in today's debate. My partner already talks to you about why like this affects FKF and why that's particularly important, and that's something we need to protect in today's debate. Well, then I'm going to talk to you about is that why, one, is this, or rather having penalties is good for the fans. I've already talked to you about the principle of escapism and proved to you why its impact to the fans is particularly worse off at the point where we do not have penalties for these people. Now, before I proceed, I'll take a question.
how do you cater for the financial issues? How do you account for your world, bringing benefits in terms of finances and all that stuff?
We think if finances is the argument in this debate, you are on the worst end of this debate. Why? Simply because these teams get to incur the cost of the damage that occurred to that stadium. This team gets to incur the cost of the kind of injuries that these fans also like get to incur in those same games at the point where these fans are hurt. But then 3, a penalty then becomes particularly important in today's debate is that it acts as a virtue signaling effect to these teams, that you have to control your fans. You have to be that signal boost within your fans that tells your fans that if you misbehave, you don't get the benefit that we give to you. And if anything, that's the most important thing in today's debate. That becomes the most important factor in today's debate. That impacts these fans on 3 steps. 1, their values. They're likely to be more attuned towards taking steps that prevent them from essentially becoming irrational on the ground. 2, their self-interest. I've talked to you about the value of escapism and why this becomes particularly important for these people. 3, like the kind of, what the fans feel is expected of them becomes particularly important in that they feel that they have a duty to play to their own team, to protect their own team. And the best way to protect their own team is not to fight on the ground, but rather restrain themselves, no matter how bad the match was, simply because they have a future. They still want to win that league. They still want to be seen as the top dogs. And the only way they can be seen as the top dogs is if they have a clear name, is if they have a clear narrative that we are the only team that didn't misbehave throughout the entire season. And so if anything, if we win, we are the ones who are the most justified to win, independent of anything. But then 4, virtue signaling. The narrative this sends out even to like other external actors and other external sponsors. Remember, FKF is also a growing company, is also a growing corporation. It's looking to get sponsors from outside. It's also looking to host other international events. There is absolutely no way the international community is going to invest in Kenya at the point where they see violence on the pitch. And the best way in which you get to protect our external interest is simply at the point where we have these penalties, simply because we get to protect our major interest, which is 1, our fans, and 2, our external interest to the international community. If you get nothing else from my speech, get this. 1, the fan is the most important actor in today's debate. 2, we need to protect these fans, and the only way you protect these fans and the narrative that protects these fans is through the virtue signaling effect from penalties. Thank you.
I think we've all been had an interesting debate from side opposition and side proposition. If you're a football fan, I think we've been able to pique your interest enough for you to wonder, as a supporter, should your team suffer the consequences of the actions that you currently face in those spaces, or should the supporters themselves just suffer the consequences of their own actions aside from the teams as a whole? And even does the FKF in and of itself get affected by this whole notion that you can punish the teams or you can punish the supporters? From side opposition, they tell you that the only way to protect this federation, to protect the teams and to protect the fans is to have them actually penalize the teams as a whole to offer the largest level of deterrence from committing this harm. Then from side proposition, they tell you that the only way to maintain financial benefit or to maintain the sanctity of these football teams as a whole is to just punish supporters. There's no logical existence that you can place on these teams to suffer consequences of their supporters' actions. I don't know whether you bought their arguments or not, but feel free to engage with us on X to respond to the question of, do you think your teams should suffer the consequences of you as a supporter doing whatever you have to do? We'll be going on a short commercial break, but when we are back, we will get to hear from the judges who has won this round and who hasn't. But I think if you already know, you can engage with us on X at KTN Home or message us on WhatsApp with the number 075 choosing to join us again for another engaging episode of Campus Debates. We've had a fun round for the first and the second part, right? With the speakers talking about whether the football teams should suffer consequences of their supporters' actions that are considered immoral or violent during their football games. We've talked about the FKF, the Federation, the Football Kenya Federation. We've also talked about the football leagues in Kenya and the teams as a whole, right? I think we've engaged you enough to understand the whole construct of how football teams work and whether it would be beneficial or not for all these things to exist. The judges have said they've not been swayed enough by the speakers from both teams. And with that, they've asked to ask a question to both of the speakers and both of the teams after this round. With that, we'll allow the judges to ask a question to side proposition and a question to side opposition. Judges.
Okay, thank you so much. My question goes to side proposition. Now that you've said that frustration will exist in your world where if fans feel like their team is continuously losing, they'll be frustrated. So how do we then keep fans in check to ensure there's sanctity in the stadium by the fans themselves, so that as a regular fan at home, I don't feel worried that the next time I go and watch a game in your stadium, I might not make it at home because the frustration will exist, the fans will still heckle, violence will still exist. So how do we ensure that there's a guarantee or there's this guarantee that these fans will stay in check? Thank you.
My question is to side opposition. Is there assurance that this thing is actually going to be effective? Because we still have cases where the teams have been penalized, yes, but then there's still cases of violence amongst the fans.
The speakers have had their questions and we'll allow them a minute for each side to respond to the judges. Side proposition, you have 1 minute. Here.
Thank you for clapping for me. Now, first of all, it's very simple. When you are part of something like an organization, you have to have rules. So you have to come up with rules that will hold accountable these people in terms of, if you destroy anything, you're going to pay this and this. If you do this and this, you're going, for example, if you become violent, you fight other funds, you're going to pay a fine of this amount. Now, also, you have to look at the guidelines that you have to bring out in terms of the guidelines in terms of conduct. My conduct as a fan should not be that much as it is overzealous, should not be one that will be dangerous to other people. In that, we as a team will appoint technical teams who will take care of issues where players may fight. They constrain them, they exercise restraint on them in terms of if somebody is almost going to beat another, they already detect that. Also, there are CCTV cameras you can install in stadium by cooperating with FKF. In that, FKF ensures that you can easily monitor the behavior of a fan who is violent. You can just see a person you know this violent person. They're so experts in terms of looking at behavior tactics, how people behave. Simple as that. Thank you, Pane.
I'll just use his analysis to answer the same question. We need to come up with rules. If you do this, then this is the penalty. There has to be a code of conduct for these teams that these teams need to follow. Why then this becomes particularly effective is for two reasons. One, the nature of how these penalties can look like. We think a penalty can take several forms. One, it could include barring that team from participating for the rest of the league. Two, it could include the same thing plus financial penalties. Why these two frames become particularly important is for two reasons. It affects the financial incentives of the team, and two, the incentives of the fan. If anything, those are the biggest benefits in today's debate. Trust me, with the escapism and the kind of value and the kind of love that these fans have for the same sport and the same teams they have every incentive to see their team win. They want that narrative of being the best. They want the same narrative of being the team, like the most dominant team for a certain period of time. The best way in which they get to protect that is if they understand the value of these same penalties and why that would become particularly important. As he said, if you do this, this has to be the fault. There has to be a code of conduct that we need to follow. Thank you.
I think it was a bad decision to have a football motion be debated by pure men on the debating panel because they're so passionate about it. And I think that's the one thing football and debate have in common, passion. But they have responded to their questions, and I think the judges are well sufficed by the arguments that they got. We'll allow them to issue us the verdict that they have for this debate. Who do you think has won, and who do you think has lost?
So the debate we had, based on the verdict, team opposition has it over team proposition, and this is the reason why. So the clashes: one, sanctity of the sport; second, preservation of this sane football culture; and thirdly, accountability. So where do we place accountability? And that was the reason why we asked the two questions, so that we can at least get incentivized to understand. So do we place it on the fans or do we place it on the teams? So generally, we tend to understand that the soft power that comes with penalizing a team and actually making it suffer financially puts a huge burden on the fans to behave the next time probably they go to Nyayo Stadium, because they do not want their teams to keep on crying that we do not have like finances to actually cater for say the salary of the footballers because we decided to pay for your vandalism mistakes. So that is how we understood it. And then the effectiveness part. We need to have like a code of conduct or a set of rules on paper, but that is not enough. The implementation, what we get is that there exists some kind of marginal effect of deterrence at a point in time that a team is barred from probably playing at the KPL or probably winning, or like they were short financially. That is why they could not like take part in like a football match. So we get to like understand that in that particular way, the marginal effect of deterrence ensures accountability, preservation of the sane culture of football, and that is why we have team opposition taking it over team proposition.
I think as an audience, if you did not actually buy into the verdict that you've gotten from the judges, maybe you didn't listen to the entirety of the debate, but it's fine. So the judges have decided that University of Nairobi has been able to win this round, and with that, they have won both their preliminary rounds, gathering them 6 major points for the 2 rounds they've debated. Because of this, University of Nairobi will not be at the knockout rounds that are scheduled to happen very soon, but I think that's a win for them. For Kenya School of Law, however, they've not been able to win both of their rounds. They are at 2 points currently after winning 1 point for this round. Hopefully, their speaker scores are good enough to protect them from being in the knockout rounds. But if they are not protected, it's a good thing we'll get to see them in the knockout rounds, another chance for us to cheer for them and to actually allow them to win, right? It's been an interesting debate. If you did not know anything about football, I think this was the best platform to actually learn about it, especially Kenyan football. From the first speaker proposition, they told you that Kenyan football is not something that many people buy into today. I think after listening to this debate, starting next week, probably we'll start watching Kenyan football teams and actually going to their stadiums and actually supporting them, but we'll see, right? But it's been an interesting round. Tell us if you agree with the judges. Tweet, retweet, and share with us on X at KTN Home with the hashtag Campus Debates. But if you feel like messaging us on WhatsApp, here's the number, 0759 434389. 0759 434389. We are always ready to respond to you as Campus Debates, and any other issue you want us to discuss, we're willing to respond to you happily. We have come to the end of this episode. It's been a wild ride. If this was your first time viewing us, we hope that we intrigued you and we have actually convinced you to show up on Monday at 8 p.m. as of next week. If this was your continuous episode, thank you so much for staying true to Campus Debates, and thank you for watching us for the entire hour. We hope to see you next week, same time, same place. My name is Masivu Gutsa, and I was your host.